Okay, I think we can go ahead and get started. Thank you, everybody, for coming out this morning. I know that everybody's probably exhausted from the legislative session. I know that I'm still recovering, and many of you were actively involved this session with various items that we'll be talking about. Let's see. First, we'll do introductions. And I'm Kelly Cole, and I'm the director of the Broadband Outreach Center here in GoEd, and we'll just go this way around the room, and then we'll go to the phone.
So, Heath Price with USDA Rural Development.
Whoever's on the phone, can you please mute your phone and don't push the hold button because we keep hearing music. Go ahead, Stephanie.
Dave Edmonds with Utah Communications Board.
And who's on the phone with us?
John Harvey with Commission.
John Harvey?
Yes.
And I heard Commissioner Cox was on the phone.
Correct.
Anybody else? Okay. All right. Perfect. Okay. Well, thank you for being here on this beautiful morning. It's finally warming up in Salt Lake City, and we have a pretty packed agenda today. So we're going to go ahead and get started. As many of you know, there were a lot of things going on at the legislative session this year, and one of those was the passage of the Universal Service Fund. And I know that there were a lot of conversations trying to get the different perspectives to come up with something that was, I think, a compromise from a lot of angles. And, you know, we appreciate you guys. I know that this was definitely a private sector-led effort, URTA, CenturyLink, working with Comcast and AT&T. And so to give a recap, I know it went through several iterations during the session, but Kira is going to give us kind of what we settled to in the end, and just the implications moving forward. Could you unmute your microphone? You can present from there if you want. Yep. So yeah, Kira Slauson with URTA.
Thanks. We ended up passing the fifth substitute, so there were quite a few iterations, and the fifth substitute actually came out, at 9 o'clock Thursday night. So it was nail-biting. But I guess I'll just start with, for those of you who don't know, the State Universal Service, this was an amendment to the statute. The State Universal Service Fund has been in place since 1997. And it was a bargain that the state made with the carriers back then. Rural carriers reduced their in-state long-distance charges in exchange for distributions from a fund, and the fund would be collected on all telephone lines in the state. Since the USF was established, the telecom industry has changed substantially, and networks that used to carry only voice now carry broadband on the same network. And despite the increased number of people using devices to connect to the public switch network, the fund has been declining. And so over the summer, the Public Service Commission and the Division of Public Utilities kind of looked at this issue. The Public Service Commission had previously the authority to set the USF rate of contribution. And because it was declining, they had some concerns as to why it was declining, kind of opened up a docket on those issues. And the decline is likely, they determined that the decline was likely because of the way wireless and VoIP providers have allocated their in-state revenue to voice and data. As data use goes up, voice use might go down, and the amount of dollars allocated to the voice use was going down. So the percentage applied to those declining revenues resulted in a decline in the fund. The Public Service Commission thought that a per connection or per line surcharge might be a more stable way to go, but they felt that they were concerned that the statute as drafted did not give them that authority. And they didn't want to be embroiled in litigation, so they went to the legislature in the interim and asked for some direction. At the same time, the rural companies who received distributions from the fund and also the agencies, I think it's fair to say, including the Division of Public Utilities, Bill, you correct me if I'm wrong, and the Office of Consumer Services, have been litigating some of the same issues over and over again with each and every telecom provider. And so we were looking for a little more regulatory certainty in terms of distributions from the fund. So URTA and its members decided that it was probably time to amend the fund to bring it in line with technologies in 2017. And also to reflect the public policy that rural customers in the state should have access to advanced telecom networks that provide both voice and data. So we worked tirelessly with Senator Hinkins and CenturyLink, and ultimately a bill was drafted and was shared at the beginning of the session. And like Kelly said, there were a lot of stakeholders that had concerns or wanted clarification. And so that's why we went through 5 substitutes. Senator Hinkins, Senator Okerlund, and Senator Bramble met with all of the stakeholders on numerous occasions to try and bring everybody to the table. And I think ultimately we ended up with some compromises in the bill, but I think ultimately it ended up as a better bill. Certainly some of the concerns that were raised by the Division of Public Utilities and the Office of Consumer Services, which we were able to address early on, resulted in a clarified bill. Ultimately, the draft that was passed ensures that everyone who uses the public switch network should pay for its support, regardless of the technology that they use to connect. It gives the Public Service Commission the authority to determine a competitively neutral method of contribution. This is one of the compromises. We had suggested in the initial draft that the commission be directed to move to a per line per connection surcharge, but ultimately that was taken out of the bill draft and explicitly given that the commission was given that authority. So they will do that in a rulemaking.
So how does that? So could you explain that again? So they, so the Public Service Commission, do they assess like a percentage, or how do they?
Right now it's a percentage. It's 1.65% of in-state retail revenues, so telephone revenues. Okay. And so now under the bill they can determine what the method of contribution is, as long as it's competitively neutral. And so they could move to a per line, per access line, or per connection surcharge. They could keep it as a percentage of retail revenues, or they could come up with a better idea that we haven't thought of.
Okay, so it's kind of, that's still in flux as far as what that.
Yeah, they've just been given the authority, and they now have the portion of the statute that they thought precluded them from moving to a per line, per connection has been removed. Okay. It also brings, so we anticipate a rulemaking procedure started at the commission likely right after the bill goes into effect. The bill has an effective date of July 1st, 2017. The bill also brings the telecom relay service fee into the USF. This typically had been a separate fee, or historically had been a separate fee assessed on the phone bills, and now it'll just be part of the USF. The telecom relay service is for the hearing impaired. It also enables the commission to update the Lifeline program so that qualified low-income customers can use the $3.50 Lifeline credit for broadband service. This is consistent with the FCC. It gives the commission that authority. It establishes the public policy that networks that are capable of providing voice and broadband should be supported by the USF. And the bill as drafted provides regulatory certainty, more regulatory certainty. We certainly didn't eliminate all the issues. There's just no way of doing that. But it did give direction to the agencies and to the recipients of the fund, that we think makes the distributions from the fund at least more predictable. One of the issues that we litigate over and over again is the rate of return and the capital structure, and this actually sets the weighted average cost of capital rate of return by statute, so those issues will be eliminated. And then we think of provide standards that will be applied consistently from company to company, addressing some depreciation issues. So that's basically it on the statute. It requires, like I said, it requires rulemaking by the commission, but it gives the commission direction on which way to go, how to, what issues to address in rulemaking. Anything I missed, Douglas? Century? Yes, that's directly stated in the bill.
Anybody have any other questions? What did you say the lifeline fee is? It $3 and what was it?
The lifeline, the state lifeline fee is $3.50.
And that's okay.
It's not a fee, it's
the
right.
subsidy.
Yeah.
Sorry. Was there something in the bill that dealt with emergency communications?
Originally there was, that got taken out as one of the
Okay.
part of the process.
Okay. All right. And then I would love to just do a blog with like the highlight points and put it out on our newsletter. So I'll do a quick draft and send it over to you and have you kind of fill it in, because it's nice to kind of have a quick fact sheet, so that people are aware of what the changes are. So I'll work with you on that in the next week or so.
I can do it.
And then let's see. Is Senator Hatch's office on the call yet? We're a little bit early for them. We might switch things around just a little bit. Dave, why don't we have you go?
Sure, that'd be great.
Okay.
My name is Dave Edmonds. I'm the new Executive Director of the Utah Communications Authority, and I couldn't be more pleased to be here today. I know a lot of you in the room, and I've gotten to know a lot of you over the last few months. I've been at UCA since about mid-September. I took over for Steve Proctor. For many of you probably know Steve. He'd been there for many, many years. In fact, he'd been the only executive director prior to my arrival. We have started to change the culture out at UCA. Just to give you a little bit about my background, I come from law enforcement. I did about 22 years in law enforcement. The last 12 years of my career, I was the elected sheriff of Summit County. I served as the president of the Utah Sheriff's Association for a couple of terms, and worked at 4 different law enforcement agencies throughout my career. Utah Highway Patrol first, and then St. George Police Department, Park City Police Department, and then I ran for sheriff and finished out my career there. After I had my years in law enforcement, I went to the private sector for a couple of years and was the CEO of Stone Security, which is a large security integration company based here out of Salt Lake City. We had large accounts all over the Wasatch Front, and Denver was a big area for us as well. In fact, we are the Stone Security is the principal security integrator for the city and county of Denver. So we had a lot of responsibilities. And then when I had an opportunity to come over to UCA, I jumped on it. And the reason I did is because my passion lies in public safety. It always has. That's where, since I was 21 years old, I was a police officer. I still maintain my peace officer certification as a reserve peace officer. I simply say that I love public safety first responders. I absolutely do. Those people and what they do, the mission is so sacred, and it is so absolutely critical to making our society function that the ability to get back into public service, I couldn't resist myself. So I'm happy to be here. I really am. You probably, a lot of you I know, were following SB 198, which was the bill that very much impacted the Utah Communications Authority. In fact, changed the face of it tremendously. We had one of the largest boards in all of state government. We had a 27-member board. That, because of the SB 198, which was Senator Harper's bill, and then the sponsor in the House was Representative Handy, they were able to get passed, I think, a very comprehensive bill that's going to ensure public safety communications for the future. Before we get into some of the elements of the bill, I think one thing I need to explain to you folks is that we have an aged public safety communications infrastructure in this state. It was put in prior to the Olympics, and you know, frankly, it is absolutely end of life. We are buying parts off of eBay. I know that some people in the room are tired of hearing that, but it's absolutely true. We feel like that this is going to do a lot to make sure that public safety communications moving forward are going to be best of breed. And also compliant with what the public safety communications are, the industry-wide standards across the country. We want to make sure that Utah citizens are being protected in that manner. I mentioned our board. It's going to go from 27 members down to 9, which we think is much more manageable and makes a lot of sense. The breakdown is as follows. There will be 3 gubernatorial appointees, 1 from the President of the Senate, 1 from the Speaker of the House, 2 from the Leagues of Cities and Towns, and 2 from the Utah Association of Counties. Excuse me. This change allows for a certain degree of separation. Right now, the board members are made up almost exclusively of users of the system. Now the board is going to be made up of non-users. One of the requirements is the people that serve on the board will no longer be users of the system. I think the intent was to try to separate that and make more business-related decisions on the decisions that come before the board, and I think that'll probably happen. Also, the legislation creates an operations committee that is made up of the users and folks from the private sector as well. All of the usual suspects will be represented on that operations committee, both state and local government entities and public safety. And then there will also be some people there'll be vendors from the private sector on that committee as well. There will also be regional advisory committees made up of the 7 regions in the state, and those folks will be meeting on a regular basis, we hope, and providing us good information and good feedback on what they would like to see done as it pertains to public safety communications. There was some major changes to the fees. Currently, right now, you're paying 76 cents per phone on fees, and that will go up to 98 cents, and then eventually it will go to $1.32. Now, there's no question that that's a big jump, but the overwhelming bulk of those fees will be going to upgrade our system, and it's going to take a lot of money to do that. We have estimated that it'll take anywhere from $140 to $150 million to upgrade our current 800 megahertz system, get it compliant with P25, which is the public safety standard throughout the country. We believe that, we're still, I'm told that Idaho and Colorado are still higher than Utah is on the fees. But there's no question that is a huge investment in public safety, and we're grateful to the legislature and grateful specifically to Senator Harper and Representative Handy for shepherding this bill. The other thing that I want to make sure that I really spend some time talking about is this need to partner with the private sector. We have talked with some of the telcos about entering into agreements that will assist us in performing the services that we, by statute, are required to perform. We feel like that there are opportunities throughout the state, and we feel like that we are very, very close to getting some deals inked in the very near future. We have been overwhelmed at the UCA trying to get back up to speed. We were devastated by the scandal that occurred and trying to deal with the aftermath of that. But we've got a lot of good people on board. The professional technicians that have done such a capable job for so many years are still there doing the job that they've always done. We certainly don't want to have the agency marred by, one individual and one former employee who did some pretty terrible things and has also been convicted of criminal activity. activity as a result of that. But we're putting it back together piece by piece. We're sifting through the rubble, so to speak. The good news is the system is still up and running, and it is serving its purpose each and every day. So when public safety keys the microphone, they are able to talk. And we're committed to making sure that that is the case moving forward each and every day. I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have. I don't know if that's part of it.
Yep, that's part of it, yep.
Does anybody have any questions for me, or like? Well, we're trying to do a lot more partnering. We have done some in the past, and we anticipate that we're going to do a lot more in the future. We have certainly been given the directive by the legislature to where it's feasible, where it's cost effective, and where it makes sense that we should be partnering with the private sector. And I feel very strongly as the executive director that there are some opportunities to do that. There are places in Utah where the private sector already has fiber through a lot of the mountains that we need to go. We like to have redundancy. We would, in a perfect world, we would love to have fiber and microwave at every one of our sites. That would be wonderful. So we have, two redundant paths to make sure that those critical communication infrastructures are functioning properly at any given moment. We've already identified a few places where we can partner with the private sector. And again, as we move forward and as we build the system out and as we upgrade our current system, we believe that there are going to be vast opportunities for that. That's my hope, and that's my belief. No, we're not going to be building fiber. We don't have the expertise, the capacity, or the money to be able to do that. We've been using microwave as a backup in a lot of places, and we've had to use it for primary in some locations. But we anticipate utilizing private sector's fiber, and that we think that there are going to be some great opportunities to do that. Yes. Well, that's a very good question. We're hoping that there's some work being done in the background right now to make sure that this board is up and running by July 1st. All of the entities mentioned are going to have to nominate. They also have to be confirmed by the Senate, each one of the members of the new board. So that's going to be a little bit of a process. Our new board is right now where we're working on the budget for FY 18 and trying to get that put together so they can get that budget approved before July or June 30th.
I have a question. I don't know if this is coming up a lot since you've been in your position, but I know, Steve Proctor, that I know that there were several conversations where industry had encouraged more of a UEN type model, more partnering. Have you talked to UEN at all about what they do as far as like their procurement and how they set things up? Is that something that you guys coordinated on at all?
I don't have a lot of information on that.
Okay.
I'm certainly open to that.
They're here. It might be useful for you guys to chat.
Perfect. I know we've done some projects in the past. I understand that.
Could you give him just kind of a high level of how you guys kind of do your partnership, just maybe a couple minutes? Can you turn on the microphone for a minute?
Yeah, so on the Utah education and telehealth side, we have the telehealth component in as well. In both cases, we leverage funding through USAC. On the education side, it's E-rate. On the telehealth side, it's Healthcare Connect funding. And so that allows us then to specify the type of broadband and service that we need. We put that into an RFP. That serves K-12 specifically. And then we work with Utah's providers to connect those locations around the state. I think it's worked extremely well. It is a public-private solution that helps on pushing fiber and infrastructure, and then we act as an anchor tenant in those cases. And then in areas where we've worked with, UCA, it's primarily been some of the traditional mountaintop locations. Ours have kind of really dropped over the years as we put more fiber in, but out in Daggett's a place that we still share space with UCA and some places down in southeastern Utah. And we actually have a meeting coming up in May, some planning that we were actually going to extend an invitation to you, so we can visit with you later day and give you more detail on what we do.
Thank you. Yeah, they're a great resource for that type of thing. So, yeah. All right. And I'm not sure if Senator Hatch is online yet. They were going to call in. Does anybody else have any more questions for Dave?
Thank you for that.
There's Lynn and then Doug.
We are. There's a lawsuit going on with the FirstNet folks, at the national level. So we were still waiting to see who is going to win that contract and what that looks like. But yeah, we're in contact with them on a regular basis, kind of in a holding pattern now. Eventually, there's going to be a plan that's presented to the governor, and he's going to make a decision on whether to opt in or opt out. But we're waiting. We're just in a holding pattern at this point. Yeah, I think you're right. There's no question that it's a lot more robust. And in trying to capture all of that information, video, texting, pictures, and push that out to first responders, that's the overall goal. But yeah, we'll see what it looks like. There's more questions than answers at this point. We know that LMR, or land mobile radio, is not going anywhere as a result of this, at least not in the foreseeable future. And even the FirstNet folks will be quick to tell you that. But yeah, we definitely want to look at it. We want to see what they've got. We want to make sure that we're recommending the right thing to the governor's office, and we're on top of that. In fact, I have Gordy Coles is the guy that's assigned to that and works out of UCA, and that's what he does on a regular basis, is analyze that issue.
And they had a meeting in December that I thought was interesting because they asked a lot of the first responders what kind of applications, what kind of uses, and it was kind of cool to get into that a little bit more, to see the vision of why are they doing this.
It's amazing how far we've come in public safety over the last few years. Technology has really done some very good things for public safety, and as much information as we can get to a first responder prior to them arriving in an emergency situation, boy, that's going to be better for the public, whether it's a medical emergency, whether it's a criminal emergency. It really doesn't matter. As much information as you can possibly get, and I'll tell you, for a peace officer to be able to see through video the scene that he's coming into, he or she's coming into, that's a huge thing. And I can't even imagine what that would be like, but we're not very far away from that. We're coming. Yeah, and there's so many applications. In public safety, it doesn't matter if you're talking police, fire, EMS. To be able to have that kind of information is just, it's amazing. It'll save lives. There's no question about that.
Any other questions? Okay, I've been messaging Senator Hatch's office, and they just jumped on. So, Ryan, are you there?
Yes, we're here. I'm here with Ed Cox as well.
Okay.
We appreciate you giving us a little bit of time. I'm going to turn it over to Ed, and he'll kind of introduce.
Ed Cox from Senator Hatch's office. As some of you may have seen, Senator Hatch just introduced a new Highway Rights-of-Way Permitting Efficiency Act of 2017. UDOT has been instrumental in working with Senator Hatch's office, and then we've given some feedback. We also worked a little bit with Flipco. They're really excited about this legislation. And I know that some of the rural providers have spoken with, I know in particular Strata and Emory have both talked to Senator Hatch's office about this issue. And so we thought we would have our friends from DC just give us kind of an overview of where things are at and give them some time to present to us remotely. Ryan, are you there? Ryan? I wonder if he put himself on mute. Dial him back in. We'll give him a minute. We know that he was here. I think this is the first remote presentation in all the years that we've done this. I think this is the first time we've done any kind of remote presentation. Lynn? Can you turn your microphones on? Lynn, can you turn the microphone on? It's the bottom, you have to kind of push it harder. Yeah.
There, thank you. The inefficiency was disturbed area when we're on an interstate right of way, when we've already got back to fence line that's there, that we've already built the road on, and the amount of environmental assessment that you had to do to be able to put in a line in an already disturbed area, that we'd already had all of the environmental stuff done when we built the road. And so to be able to put a fiber optic line in and have to go through 2 years of environmental assessment to be able to plow a line.
Hi, folks. We just jumped back on the call. Sorry, something catastrophic happened. We got kicked off.
Hey, no problem. We were just having Lynn Yoakum explain the need, so we'll have her finish and then we'll have you guys start.
Okay, great.
Are you finished?
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah. Okay, so she just gave a very brief summary of that it was taking a long time to permit on previously disturbed areas. So.
Absolutely,
Go
and
ahead, guys.
it's a real problem. You know, even the previous administration and other people have recognized the importance of providing broadband infrastructure to our rural communities across the country, and in the West in particular. That's a challenging thing to do. We have unique problems because we have public land and we have multiple administrations that we have to work through quite a lot of red tape to get these projects done. And so Senator Hatch has taken a look at this and wanted to make a priority to streamline these projects, particularly with these land management agencies. And we know that states like Utah do an exceptional job at working through the red tape on their end. And so we sat down and worked with you all and other stakeholders, and we came up with a bill that has been introduced in the Senate. It's Bill S-604. But what this bill does is it allows states to voluntarily enter into cooperative agreements with the federal government, basically that allows them to tackle the NEPA permitting. We call it the NEPA delegation program, where it delegates that responsibility to states that want to take it on, who think that they can do it more efficiently than the federal government can. Additionally, it provides for a categorical exclusion through NEPA for any broadband project that is within existing operational highway rights-of-way. This, in Senator Hatch's opinion, is pretty uncontroversial. We're talking about previously disturbed ground within the right-of-way. This should already be on the books, in our opinion. And so that's another way to streamline it. Additionally, in the West, you can have these broadband infrastructure projects that span great distances. They could cross over Forest Service, Bureau of Land Management, perhaps on occasion Park Service. It can span multiple federal agencies. Each have their own processes, their own red tape, their own permit review processes, and in many cases, these agencies, their budget's strapped in a lot of cases. For instance, we've known many cases where the Forest Service has the one person that does the permitting for this, you know, go out of town for a leadership training for 2 weeks, or you name it, you know, that project is not going to move forward until that person comes back. And so, with multiple agencies handling the permitting, that increases the likelihood of running into those types of situations. And so, another aspect of the bill is this would designate a lead agency in the federal permitting process, regardless of whether a state opts into the state permitting authority. This will consolidate efforts from the executive branch, and it'll create a single point of contact for a given broadband deployment project. So this, we hope, and I think we'll find when this bill passes and gets signed into law, that this will really speed things up. We've seen this happen in other situations where an agency takes a lead role. For instance, I know there's similar authority for transmission projects, etc. So anyways, that's essentially the meat of the bill. We're excited about it. We've got some other offices that have expressed interest in helping us get this across the finish line, and we appreciate your all help in helping Senator Hatch develop this bill, and appreciate your support for moving it forward. Hopefully we can see it get signed into law this Congress.
Hey, I have a question. So the states can opt in to take over, you know, some of the right-of-way processes. Is that always going to be the Department of Transportation in a state? Does it have to be? No. No.
I believe it's worded a state can do it. So whatever the relative agency in the state.
And I had the question when I read that, because in another state, you know, if another agency for whatever reason were to want to take the initiative, I was wondering if it had to be their DOT or if other partners could.
I don't believe it's worded that it has to be their DOT.
I don't think it is.
I'd guess that it would.
Clarify that.
Because since we're talking solely within highway rights-of-way for the categorical exclusion, and
I mean,
NEPA, I'd guess that the state agency with jurisdiction would be their state DOT.
Right.
But it's not written that way, so I could be wrong. Maybe other states do it vastly different. I don't know, but.
Okay. Yeah, and I don't know the scenario in which that would happen, but just because it was worded more generally, so.
Right.
Which could be a good thing, you know, in other circumstances.
Yeah, we wanted to be careful not to be too prescriptive.
Yeah. Questions for Senator Hatch's office? For Ryan? Keep us updated.
Yeah, so the bill was referred to the Committee on Environment and Public Works. Senator Hatch is not a member of the committee, but he has a very good working relationship with that committee and its chairman. So we're pretty optimistic that we can get a hearing on this bill, and that we can really see if it has a good chance of seeing some action in the Senate this Congress. We have Senator Daines from Montana and Senator Fisher from Nebraska have signed on, and we have just started shopping this bill around. So I assume we're going to be able to get quite a bit of support, particularly from Western members. So, but we do want to express our appreciation to many of you for your early support, and we will continue to be reaching out to you and working with you on this project and any other project that you see that we can be of help. We want to be continuously helpful to you, and we appreciate you letting us join on the call today.
Thank you. Does anybody have any? And I was also going to say, I'm obviously a member of a few groups with other broadband leaders throughout the country, and so we should maybe chat offline. There might be an opportunity to do maybe a webinar with some of the other states, or do just some info with them, so that they know when they're, you know, asked by their congressional offices, they have an idea of what the bill does. So
that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So let's see. So our next presenter is Keith Price from USDA, and many of you know Deb Meyer was attending this meeting And Keith is Deb's replacement. She was promoted and he was moved into her position, and so we thought we would have him do an introduction and kind of an overview of some of their programs. So he has a call for that. I'll show you. Okay, you can sit there and.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Kelly for giving me this opportunity. As she said, I took over for Debbie Meyer and as the Community Programs Director here in Utah. Before coming to Utah, I spent the last 13 years in Boise, in Idaho, working for rural development, working with their community programs as well. And in community programs, we do the water and sewer loans for small communities, population 10,000 under, and also essential community facilities, which would be your fire stations, hospitals, schools, anything in the outlying rural areas, we do financing for. We have loans and some grant to help with repayment. And I guess in addition to being the Community Programs Director, they've also asked me to be the Broadband Coordinator for rural utility service. And that's the why we attend this Jamie as well. She is our Public Information Officer, and so we attend this meeting to be coordinators for our telecommunication programs. So I know Kelly at the last meeting had given out some pamphlets going over in more detail, and so with that, the first one is our Community Connect program, which brings it's a grant program that brings grant to communities lacking broadband. It also can be used, 10% of those funds can be used for actual building infrastructure, or a building facility for the public to have access to that infrastructure. The other program that we have is our distance learning and telemedicine. This helps, it's in the title, helps with education and medicine to have the remote, out in the rural areas. It helps the providers and the professional services in those areas with those items. And then our Farm Bill broadband and telecommunication infrastructure program, which it provides loans and guarantees to help out with broadband. So as I said before, I am the coordinator, but if you're getting into more technical questions that you have for these programs, Randy Dinigen, he is, his contact information is up there, and so he can help you with the more technical questions. Yeah, that's generally all I had.
Okay.
Any questions?
Does anybody have any, yeah?
What's your expectation for the capital budget line for water and sewer area?
Yeah, at this point we don't know. It was in the president's budget, but at this point things still have to go through Congress, and so really we have no idea where that's going to be.
The most funding that Utah's gotten for any of our telecommunications in Utah has been for distance learning and telemedicine. UAN has worked with us a couple of times to get funding for equipment out to high schools to connect, just by their, what do they call it? It's their distance learning, but there's some specific name. But they've gotten funding for that, and also we funded health clinics to help them purchase new equipment that's up to standards for like the electronic medical records, that sort of thing. So that's really all that Utah's really gotten funding for lately. How? Could you turn on the microphone?
So, within rural communities, UNN maintains a distance education interactive video network. And so the last grant we did was a couple of years ago, where we worked on upgrading high schools in rural Utah, getting out some of our legacy equipment, and they provided match for that. And so it was 50-50 match that we did on that. And so that's complete. Utah State University's done the same thing, and the most recent one is Snow College, who received an award last year, and they're just literally in the stage of kind of ramping up that project. I know on the telehealth side, Deborah Marsh has worked with RUS as well, but it's been a number of years ago since they did anything. And after this last one, we really kind of hit everything so we probably won't see us for a while. So.
Thanks. And these projects and programs are administered out of our national office. So while we can answer kind of limited questions, we don't process the applications, and so we don't get a lot of the questions ourselves. But we know who to contact just in case you have specific, eligibility questions, and we'd be happy to help you with those.
Okay. Great. Thank you, guys. Let's see. So we might get out a little bit early today, which is kind of fun. So our final bigger presentation is Ashley Alonso, who is with DTS. They are working through some things with their procurement. They actually have been using the locate.utah.gov map to sort of figure out where fiber is in the state, and they've been kind of adjusting some of their processes to utilize what we know and to kind of allow more opportunities for state purchasing. Do you need a laptop or anything, or are you just gonna? Can you turn on the microphone next to you?
Yeah, so like Kelly said, we've been working with AGRC just to use those maps to their full potential on the procurement side. So we just want to talk about the upcoming solicitation that DTS has. I don't know if most of you are familiar with our data communications contracts, but those are expiring in early 2018. We're working on resoliciting those. We've worked with Kira Slauson with the URTA to execute some agreements with some of those, with most of the telcos, I believe, to agree to our terms and conditions and sort of drill those down so that they're more applicable to telecom providers. So we're going to be using those same terms for the upcoming solicitation. We've already received approval from our AAG on that. So I think this is mostly, we just want to get some feedback from you guys and see what issues you've had in responding to RFPs from BTS in the past. I know that the biggest sort of complaint that we've had is that they're just too long, so we're trying to drill those down just to the essentials to get you, not so inundated with information. And we're also making it so that not every section of the RFP is a mandatory response, so you can respond just based on certain services that you want to provide. I was hoping to have Brenda Holford here, who is also the telecommunications manager within DTS. She might be showing up a little bit later, but so I just don't know if you guys have any questions for us or any sort of feedback that you'd want us to take into consideration. We want to make sure that we're getting as many responses as possible. The agreements that we've come to have been helpful on an as-needed basis, but this is sort of just to get as many providers as we can on contract with the state. I don't know if you guys have any questions or anything that you guys had any issues with, RFPs or past solicitations within DTS? If you guys have any feedback on that.
It's very nice.
Okay. Well, it's just more of a heads up. This is something that's coming down the pipe probably in the next 2 to 3 months. We're hoping to have that out because the contract is expiring early next year.
And then also, if you're doing, we do the data submission every 6 months, But if you do any sort of major fiber upgrades, if you could give those to us, as soon as possible, even if it's not on schedule of the data submission. I know that, DTS has requested that we have, as up-to-date of information as we can.
Right,
And
and I
if
think
it's
that's something
something
that
minor,
we're
don't worry
considering
about it. But if
writing
it's,
into the solicitation as well, just because that's
Yeah.
gonna be used as a qualifier.
yeah, it's
or we
gonna,
can
they're gonna be
provide
looking
in
at
certain
that when they,
areas. Definitely, that would be very helpful.
yeah, it'll still go to Jesse, and they just wanted to, because they even had talked about requesting data every 3 months. We're not gonna do an official data submission every 3 months, obviously, but yeah, just, as soon as you have stuff online, just let us know, and then we'll update the locate map, and that can be pushed out pretty quickly. Okay. So, we are going to go to the maps of the month already, so. I've been pulling them up, Jesse, so. Okay. Here, I'll just switch seats with you for a minute. So I just have them on those two tabs.
Okay,
right there.
thank you. And I have allergies today, so I'm like late a little week, I apologize. Okay, so for February's map of the month, we wanted to highlight the Point of the Mountain area. As a lot of people know, the prison is moving, so that area is going to be open for development. So, there's lots of planning going in to look at the infrastructure that is currently available around Point of the Mountain. It's, strategically located between two universities, so the hope is that, besides residential development, that a lot of tech businesses and new commercial development will also go in. So we were interested to see, from a broadband perspective, what infrastructure is already there. And this data is pulled from Locate, so this is commercial fiber that's already available, and it is color-coded by how many providers are there, with purple being 4+ providers, and that light blue is 1. So, as you can see, most of the area, it has a lot of providers. It is very near an urban center and also near I-15. So, and if you want to look into this more, you can go to locate.utah.gov. Our site's been up for about 2, and see what providers are there by clicking the summary. So, any questions on that one?
And also, so the Point of the Mountain, they actually were originally scheduled for this meeting. We're trying to get them to come at the May meeting. Because we have talked to them a little bit about this area, and they're interested in what's there, and so we want to be able to kind of make the connections with the providers and that. Because I think, the questions that I've gotten are, obviously they want to know what the needs are there, but they also kind of wanted to know, they will want to know, if you're planning on doing any development in that area, what kind of facilities you need and what kind of plans that they, set and things. And so we're hoping that they will be here at the May meeting. And so be thinking about any questions that you may have, for that group, for when they come in. And I think that'll be a really exciting discussion. And then, and then were there any questions? Oh, Lynn, you've been working with them, so. Yeah. I brought up one major question for them. So, we've got fiber connectivity. You've got fiber connectivity at your main prison now that connects down to rural Utah, brings Gunnison Prison together with the Draper Prison. You don't have such great connectivity at the new location, guys. You've got some long-haul fiber, I believe, that goes out through past I-80. There's not a lot of locate areas to come in. And so I've tried to remind every committee that's out there that 80 runs past that we should be looking at solutions to extend from 5600 west to 201 to create that capacity so that there could be vendors when they come out with their DTS items for the build. Because right now it's extremely, extremely limited out to that area.
Right.
Yeah, and I would definitely encourage the providers to be kind of actively involved, and anybody, that's on the commissioner that's working on it, just to make sure that we plan this right and that that's considered in the planning process, and we'll of course help with that. But yeah, I think it's an exciting development, and I think that, we're well prepared to take care of the businesses that go into that area, but make sure that if you're thinking about going in there, that you're, kind of actively involved in the conversation, so that things don't get built before you put in what you need. So, so next map of the month.
I know it's kind of hard to see, so I zoomed in a little bit. The orange is where the current present site is, so.
Yeah.
Don't drive by it all the time. Yeah, this
Yeah.
orange right here, that's where the current site is. It's right, and then I-15 is right here. It's right next to it. So, yeah. And you can find these maps on our website, just broadband.uco.gov. And click on the blog. Okay. With the new, yeah. When people started talking about that map of the month, that's why I thought this was.
Yeah, that's what Bert thought it was too, and we went through a good 20-minute conversation and realized that we were having a totally different. Yeah.
Because I think, I was like, what's out there?
Yeah, but I think, that might be a good future thing to do, on the list, I think, because that's another area that needs some services.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that those types of issues, I think, need to be communicated to make sure that access points are there and sheds and whatever, all the things that you guys need.
Okay.
Can you turn on your microphone over there?
I'm not sure how much I can share, but the access point is about 2 miles from the site where they want to be for the prison communications. And they are currently looking at putting conduit in for the fiber right now, the state communications. I don't know. So they're looking at that right now.
And is that a separate group that's dealing with the new
Yes.
site?
Yes.
Do you have a contact for them? Because
Yep.
I might want to connect up with them
Yep.
as well. And actually, maybe we try and get both groups next time to present if we can.
It would be great.
Yeah. And it's funny because everybody gets confused. Is it the old or is it the new? That would be great. And I'll follow up with you, Ryan, on that.
Maybe we could throw on a map of the month, so.
Yeah, we could work with them. Yep.
Okay, any other questions on prison? Old prison or new prison? So for March, we looked at special tax districts, which is actually very interesting the more you get into it. So everyone who's paid property tax knows, you have your taxing districts that are familiar, like the county, the state, the city you live in. But there's also a huge list of things that you don't really think of being their own tax boundary, and that can cover things such as sewer, water, mosquito abatement, and even cemetery maintenance. And at AGRC, we actually maintain those boundaries, of where those special tax districts tax people. So, for mosquito abatement, it doesn't, the Salt Lake group doesn't just do Salt Lake City, so we have to keep track of on a map where that covers, and then we take the unique combination of all those layers, so we know that people are being taxed correctly, which is very important. So for this map of the month, it shows the density of different tax districts, which is really interesting. Yeah. I opened up a new thing. Was it? Sorry. This is what happens when you go.
I have way too many windows open.
Well, if you want to look at this in detail, it is on our website. I think it's still on the home page. I think it's the second one. So it's really interesting that there's, quite a few around here, Salt Lake County, Utah County, and because it's so complicated, we also made the data available to download. So the map shows the density of every single taxing district, and that includes counties and cities. But this data set is all the special ones, so not cities, counties, states. And you can download this data. It's statewide, right here. And you can download it in Excel format or KMZ format, or have Esri GIS, so you can download it in that format. But you can also look at it on this website, which is linked kind of towards the bottom of the blog post. And you can zoom in at the map, you can click on an area, and it'll tell you what tax districts are where. It's a little hard to see on a really small screen, but you can ask me questions and try and figure this out. You can also filter the data. I don't know why that won't forward. I'll just show you here. So you can, like, that's all going to be the same. So you can filter on different things here and download a filter, I think. So any questions on that one? We'll go back to the map. This open data page is pretty fun, so if you get a chance to go play with that on a bigger screen, I really recommend it. Any questions? So fun. Interesting how it works.
Okay. Okay. And then does anybody under UDOT, do you have any announcements or anything that you want us to go over? You're not scheduled, but do you have any for the group? That I would ask. Okay, you're good? Okay.
I got some.
Okay.
I'll wait till you're done.
No, go for it.
That map that was up there of the state, there's a route called FTV route. It's the old route that Kern River Pipeline brought in. We are going to be building a $300,000 line to go intercept that, and it's going to open up Zao, Integra, level 3, all through southern Utah. Plus, we're going to open it up down in the northern part of Las Vegas. And if you have anything that you need transport or anything down that direction in southern Utah, let us know. How are you opening it up? We're going to build a line to the regen site. It's regen down by Gunlock. Yeah. Electric lightweight is there. There's going to be a major battle coming on. Level 3 is going to be bought out by CenturyLink. Zao is buying out Integra, and those four end up as two are going to be battling big time nationwide.
Okay, cool. Does anybody else have any announcements or anything that they wanted to go over? Okay, well, we're going to have like the shortest, I think this is the shortest meeting we've ever had, but we're going to go ahead and conclude the meeting. Thank you guys for coming out, driving up here from your various parts of the state. And then if you have any things that you want on the next agenda, let me know. The next two meetings will be on Thursday, May 4th, and then on Wednesday, July 19th, if you want to put that on your calendars. And then I'll send out a calendar invite for those. That's it. Thanks, guys.
Kelly, I'm a little embarrassed this is Mike Hussey. I'm a little embarrassed I didn't drive clear from the Capitol down there now.
You should.
I
That was too far for me.
Is there anybody else that jumped on the phone that can I just do a quick roll call of anybody additional that jumped on the phone before you get off? Okay, thanks guys.